Hey guys, it's finally time for my full review for the all-new HTC One, also codenamed the M8. It's the latest flagship device from HTC. I've had the device for a little over a week. I've been using it as my daily driver, so yeah, let's do it. So if we start off with the look and feel, it's a very similar design to the original HTC One. On the top you have the power button, which also includes the IR blaster. On the bottom you have the micro USB port and the headphone jack. On the left you have your SIM card tray, and on the right you have your micro SD card slot and the volume rocker. Overall the device feels fantastic. It really does feel great in your hand. The back actually has a slight curve, so it kind of fits your palm a little bit better, and the whole thing is a metal design, and it does feel very premium. Even if it means it weighs a little bit more, it's definitely worth it. The only thing I would be aware of is it's kind of a tall device, so if you have small hands, you may have trouble reaching that status bar. Compared to other devices on the market, for example the Nexus 5, you can definitely see how much taller the M8 is. And don't forget, both these devices pretty much have a 5-inch screen size, so it is those BoomSound speakers that basically add that additional size to it. Now, if you're going to ask me, are those worth it? I would definitely say yes, because they sound absolutely amazing. They really, really do. Putting them both back to back, you can definitely notice that curve more on the back of the M8, and that's what just helps it feel that little bit more comfortable in your hand. Comparing it to something like the iPhone, yeah, you can just see how much the M8 dwarfs the iPhone. It's kind of ridiculous how small it makes the iPhone 5S look. You can actually fit it inside the M8 without a problem. So if you're someone that loves the size of the iPhone 5S and thinks it's the maximum size, you may struggle with this device. Next up, it's got a 5-inch Super LCD3 display with a 1080p resolution and a contrast ratio of 1300:1. It's also got a PPI of 441, which is a little lower than the original HTC One thanks to the additional screen size, but you really aren't going to notice. Color reproduction is fantastic. Everything pops off the display, as is the clarity and sharpness. You don't have to zoom in, you can easily read the smallest text on the website. All in all, I'm a massive fan of the Super LCD3 display on this device. It's great for viewing photos and can really bring videos to life as well. It doesn't oversaturate the colors, but it doesn't lose any pop either, so it's a win-win. It really makes for a fantastic viewing experience. You won't be disappointed with this display. Now, what can I say about this BoomSound except the fact that it's fantastic? It's unparalleled to any other device I've tried, and I'm going to play something for you here, but don't forget, this is going through my microphone, so you really have to experience this in real life to really understand how great this sounds, but nonetheless, here you go. Great for classical music, as you've just heard, and it also works great for other types of music as well. Of course, it comes packaged with the latest version of Android to date, 4.4.2 KitKat, and the latest version of the Sense UI, which is 6.0, or the Sixth Sense as they called it. One of my favorite additions is the motion launch gestures. You can double tap to wake the device. Swipe from the top down, you go straight into voice actions. From the left, you go to blink feed. From the right, I believe you go to the widget panel, and from the bottom up, you unlock straight into your home screens. Blink feed is still in full force, but it's been redesigned and it just works better. If you don't want an article, you can press and hold and just hit the remove button. You can also pull out the side drawer and you can just pick. Currently I've got highlights selected, but if you just want your Twitter feed, you can select Twitter and it'll only populate your blink feed with your Twitter. So yeah, it's a nice update and everything's very smooth. They've also added themes, and you can find those in the personalization menu. Now, this doesn't just change your wallpaper, it actually changes a little bit more than that, and if we hit apply, you'll see what I mean. If we swipe over to blink feed, you'll notice the theme has changed, and I quite like that. It's kind of nice that the theme kind of changes throughout the UI. You'll also notice the theme change in the quick toggles as well. You can see it now uses that blue coloring. Diving into sound, they've also added a do not disturb mode, so you can make sure you don't get disturbed when you don't want to. Loads of different options for you to mess around with here. You can change exactly when it turns on. You can set a schedule, you can include or exclude certain applications, so it's a pretty nice feature to have. Now, on the previous Sense UI, we always had a power saver mode, which you can see is still present, but on Sense 6.0, we actually have an extreme power saver mode, and if we turn this on, you can see it basically turns off all the smart features of your smartphone. It turns off data and all that sort of stuff, and it gives you only this home screen, and basically it just allows you to phone people or receive messages. It doesn't allow you to use data or the internet. Now, it's said that if you're on 5% left and you use this mode, it's going to give you an additional 15 hours. So if you're stuck somewhere or delayed, this may be a really useful feature. There are, of course, other improvements. For example, they've cleaned up the home screens and how you can add widgets. They've made that a lot easier. If you don't want blink feed, you can actually just remove it as a home screen and that'll be it. It's gone. It also changes the way you can add your widgets. Very simple, very fast, and very clean. It's actually one of the nicer skins out there. Another pretty cool addition I've noticed is if you dive into the stock HTC applications, you'll see the status bar actually changes color with the application. Now that's something we normally see on iOS devices, but it does look quite nice. You can see the music player changes to a kind of orangey red. And by the way, this is one of my favorite music players on any device. It's just really simple and clean to use. In the app drawer, there is a new Zoe app, but right now this is coming soon, but I'm guessing this is where you're going to be able to view and see other people's Zoes. You've still got the awesome TV application where you can see what's on TV and actually control your home TV with it as well. It comes with a Snapdragon 801 processor, which is quad-core, clocked at 2.3 GHz. That's accompanied by 2 GB of RAM and the Adreno 330 GPU. What all that translates to is seriously snappy performance, as you can see here, especially when your applications are in memory. Applications like Google Maps that can lag on other devices are just no problem for the M8. Everything is super fast and smooth. In terms of gaming, yeah, this device is a beast in that area as well. I mentioned before that it has the Adreno 330 GPU, but this isn't exactly the same Adreno 330 GPU that we saw in the Snapdragon 800. It's higher clocked, all the way up to 578 MHz, and that definitely makes a difference during gaming. Pretty much every game I tested was very fast. There was only one game that was a bit of a problem. That was GTA San Andreas. And I honestly think that was down to optimization because every other game was just buttery smooth. So for you guys and girls out there who love numbers, here are the benchmarks. And you can see it scores pretty highly on pretty much every test, especially 3D Mark. You can see it has a 15% higher score than Snapdragon 800 devices and a 95% higher score than Snapdragon 600 devices, which of course is what the original HTC One had. So you are getting quite a big upgrade in the CPU and GPU department. Now, the camera's been a huge talking point with the M8, and basically they've added another sensor and called it the duo camera. You can see it at the top there. Basically, this sensors depth, and you can use it to add effects to your pictures. I'll talk about that later. Checking out the camera UI, it's been redesigned, and it's really nice and really simple to use. You've got things like selfie, dual capture, and pan 360, which is essentially photosphere. Now, the camera itself is still using that ultra pixel technology, which is great for low light shots, but it's still using a 4 megapixel sensor, and I know a lot of people are upset about that. I'm not a major fan of cameras on smartphones anyway, but I think the camera on the HTC One M8 does a decent job. It's when you start putting them on computer and blowing them up and zooming in, that's when you start to see the imperfections of that 4 megapixel camera. If you're just going to upload your pictures to Facebook or Google Plus or Twitter, the camera's going to be fine for you. Now, I did notice it was a bit twitchy with its autofocus, but that is actually an option you can turn off and just use tap to focus. The exposure was a little bit too bright in highlight situations, so it looks like it has a little bit of a problem with adjusting to the certain exposures. All in all, I honestly wasn't too upset with the camera. I actually thought it was a decent camera, and it actually records pretty good video as well, which you can see right here. Now, one thing to mention is because they included that additional sensor, they actually took out optical image stabilization, which is a bit of a shame. It makes it harder to keep the image still when you're taking that picture quickly, and it also makes your video recording a little bit shaky as well. Now, the camera app itself, I think, is one of the best available on any device. It has a very detailed manual mode. You can change the white balance, ISO level, shutter speed. So if you don't like the shots being produced on the auto mode, set it to manual and you can produce better shots. Now, if you're wondering what you can do with that depth sensor, basically it allows you to add certain effects to your picture. So if we hit up edit, you can see U-focus, which basically allows you to blur out the foreground or the background, not really refocus the shot. So you can see I'm tapping the foreground here, it focuses just on that, blurs out the background. It's kind of a nice effect. You see a lot of professional photographers doing it. It's called the bokeh effect. It's kind of a cool thing to do. You can also add the different backgrounds here. You can see how it's using the depth sensor again to do that. So there's a few different things you can do here. Some people may call these gimmicky. This next one is just completely pointless in my opinion. Seasoning, I don't know why in the world you'd ever use that, but it's available. The Dimension Plus basically gives you a weird 3D effect. You can see you can tilt the device and it basically makes it look a little bit 3D. Sometimes that works well, sometimes it just looks really distorted. You do of course have other options here, for example frames, and you can change the contrast and brightness of the shots as well. Now, moving on to battery life, it comes with a 2600 milliamp hour battery, which isn't exactly the biggest battery we've seen in a device, but because of the Snapdragon 801 and all the optimizations they've done with the software, this thing is a beast in battery life. You can see I had a mixed usage of Wi-Fi and 3G. It lasted 1 day, 10 hours, and it had a screen on time of 6.5 hours. That's the best I've got out of any device I've owned, and I have owned quite a few of them. So very impressive battery life here. Of course, that is for my usage. I didn't really game too much, but if you do game, the battery life will decrease faster because it's more intense. So for my usage, which was essentially see a lot of YouTube. I must have watched 20 plus videos. WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter. I had all the location settings on. Google Now I had blink feed on, auto brightness was on, so it lasted me no problem, and I was using it pretty heavily. So yeah, I'm really impressed with it. There you go, guys. That's my full review for the all-new HTC One M8. Overall, I'm really impressed with the device. It does some things so much better than other devices. For example, the design and build quality. Not to mention, of course, those front-facing BoomSound speakers. Those are just amazing, and it's really annoying to actually go back to a device without front-facing speakers once you've got used to them. The inclusion of the SD card slot, I'm sure, will make a lot of people happy as well. If I had to give it a negative, it would have to be the camera. I kind of wish they didn't bother with the duo camera at all, and they just included a larger ultra pixel camera, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Peace out.